I was 23 years old when I met Marcelo in the bank line, and he smiled, called me patient. And 3 months later, I was already living with him, and I thought it was luck. I thought it was love. But love doesn't lock the door from the inside. Love doesn't grab your wrist just to show who's in charge. Love doesn't make you disappear from yourself piece by piece until you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's there. And it took me 4 years to understand that I wasn't being taken care of. I was being erased. And when I finally gathered the courage to leave, I discovered that starting over hurts less than staying. But before that, I still had to cross the longest night of my life. And it was on that night that everything changed. I'm 26 years old, and I wake up every morning at 5 before the sun hits the apartment window in Porto Alegre, just to make sure I'm alone in bed. And there are days I still feel his weight on my back, even after 8 months living here, far from Pelotas, far from that smell of warm beer and the hoarse voice saying that a real woman doesn't say no. And I met Andre at the pharmacy where I worked. He came in asking for aspirin and left with my number, and I thought it was luck. The rupture came on a winter Friday when he locked the bedroom door, and I said no for the 10th time that week, and he didn't stop. Then he threw my phone on the floor and said I was hysterical, that I was exaggerating, that marriage was like that anyway. And the next day, I pretended nothing had happened, but something inside me cracked. I started attending a listening group at a neighborhood church, not out of faith, but out of desperation. And it was there that I got a blue notebook. Write what you can't say, the psychologist told me, and I wrote. I packed my bags. I grabbed the key to my aunt's house and I came. I still don't know if it's courage or escape, but today, when I look at the blue notebook on the nightstand, I know that at least I can breathe without asking permission. I met Marcelo on a Saturday in December in the line at Banco do Brasil in Campinas, and I was 23 years old and had just been hired as an administrative assistant at a food distributor, and he was in front of me in a light blue dress shirt and polished shoes, complaining loudly about the system that was crashing. And when he turned around, he smiled and said, "You seem more patient than me," and it wasn't true. I had just learned not to complain out loud. 3 months later, we were dating, and he was a sales rep, traveled a lot, made good money, and he took me to dinner at restaurants where I didn't know which fork to use, and he paid for everything and said I deserved to be treated like a princess. And I, who shared a studio with my cousin and ate pasta 5 days a week, thought it was luck. In our 4th month, he gave me a new phone, and mine was broken. The screen cracked since it fell on the bus. "Now we can talk all the time," he said, and he installed the location app so I wouldn't get lost, and I thought it was sweet. He picked me up from work 3 times a week, even when it wasn't on his route, and he brought coffee, called me his. Sweetie stayed in the car waiting for me to come out, and my boss thought it was strange, and I thought it was romantic. At 6 months, he asked me to be his girlfriend officially, and he took me to a park and knelt with a little box. It wasn't an engagement ring, it was a silver bracelet with a tiny lock. "You're mine now," he said, and he laughed, and I laughed too. But when he closed the lock on my wrist, the latch jammed and he forced it, and the skin on my wrist turned red. "There," he said, kissing the mark. "Now nobody takes it off." That Christmas, I introduced him to my mother, and she lived in Hortolandia in a 3-room house that smelled like laundry detergent and sautéed garlic, and Marcelo brought expensive wine and complimented the tablecloth, and my mother was enchanted. "This boy is polite, Julia. Hold on to him." On New Year's Eve, we went to the beach in Ubatuba with his friends, and I wore a bikini I had bought with my Christmas bonus, and he looked and said quietly near my ear, "I didn't know you liked to show off," and I changed clothes before leaving the room. At midnight, he asked for my hand again in front of everyone with fireworks exploding in the sky, and this time it was a ring. And I said yes, because everyone applauded, because my mother cried on the phone when I told her, because it seemed like the right script. We set the wedding for June, and he insisted I move out of the studio and go live with him before it. Why pay rent for nothing? We're getting married anyway, and my cousin helped me take the boxers, and there were only 4, and when I entered his apartment, a 2-bedroom in Cambuí with tile floors and a balcony facing the street, he had already removed his ex's photo from the shelf. "Welcome to our home," he said, hugging me from behind, but when I went to put my books on the shelf, he said, "Better leave them in the guest room. It gets too crowded here." 3 weeks later, he asked for my Instagram password, just so I know who you follow, babe. There are a lot of crazy people out there, and I gave it, and the next day he unfollowed 2 ex-classmates of mine. "It's just that you don't need them anymore," he said, without taking his eyes off the laptop. And I, sitting on the edge of the new couch that he had chosen alone, looked at the silver bracelet on my wrist and thought for the first time, when did I lock the door from the inside and forget where I put the key? I got married in a cream dress at a banquet hall in Valinhos, and the party was beautiful. Marcelo insisted on paying for everything, including my mother's godmother who came by bus from Mogi Miram, and I danced. I have dances with him on the empty dance floor while everyone clapped, and I smiled for all the photos, and that night I had sex without desire because I thought that's what brides did. 2 months later, I quit my job and it wasn't my idea, and Marcelo brought up the subject on a Thursday while frying sausage in the kitchen. Don't you think it's tiring, babe, waking up early, taking the bus, that boss who looks at you wrong? I'll make enough for both of us. Stay home, take care of things, rest. I liked my job and I liked having my money, even if it was little, but he continued, you deserve more. Julia, you deserve to be treated like a queen. And then he hugged me from behind, kissed my neck, and I smelled the aftershave mixed with garlic. I quit the following week. In the first months, I tried to organize the house the way I wanted, and I moved the couch, and Marcelo moved it back, and I bought a fern pot for the bathroom, and he said plants hold moisture and threw it away, and I started making grocery lists, and he tore up the list and went alone, and came back with things I didn't ask for. Lemon soda, sliced ham, beer. I tried to learn to cook better, and I bought a recipe book at a thrift store, and I made stroganoff, and he ate in silence looking at his phone. And at the end he said my mother does it better. I started cooking like his mother. Sometimes he called from work by surprise just to know where I was. You're home right good, just checking. And other times he opened the Google Maps history on my phone. You went to the bakery yesterday at 3 in the afternoon, you didn't even tell me. I stopped going out. My cousin called me and he answered, Julia's busy now, send a message, and then he hung up and said, that girl just wants gossip, you don't need that. Gradually I stopped answering my mother's calls too, and she complained that I was different. You don't laugh anymore, daughter, and I changed the subject, and Marcelo listened to everything from the living room. On our first wedding anniversary, he arrived late, and I had made carrot cake his favorite, and it was cold when he came in smelling like whiskey and perfume that wasn't mine, and he saw the cake on the table, the candle extinguished, and said, sorry, babe. Meeting that wouldn't end. He cut a slice, ate standing, and went to the bedroom, and I stayed in the kitchen, looking at the pressure cooker on top of the stove. The one my mother gave me as a wedding gift, and I remembered she always said, pressure cooker, you have to know how to use it, otherwise it explodes. 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant, and we didn't plan it, and I was taking birth control, but I had forgotten a few times. Maybe on purpose, maybe from exhaustion, and when I told him, Marcelo was silent, and then he smiled. Now, you're really not going anywhere. I lost the baby at 12 weeks, and it was on a Tuesday morning, and I bled in the bathroom alone while Marcelo was in a meeting in São Paulo, and I called him and he said, calm down, babe, it'll be okay, but I can't leave now, call an Uber. I went to the hospital alone, and the nurse held my hand, and I cried without making noise. When I came back home, Marcelo was already there, and he brought flowers and chocolate. It was God's will, babe, we'll try again, and he didn't hug me, and he sat on the couch and turned on the TV. I lay in bed and looked at the ceiling, and the silver bracelet was loose on my wrist. I had lost weight, and I tried to take it off, and I couldn't, and the lock was still fastened. And then he yelled from the living room, Julia, where's my blue shirt? Didn't you wash it? It was on a Friday in August, and Marcelo had a work dinner boring client thing. You'd be bored, and I stayed home, and I cleaned the kitchen. Watched 2 hours of rerun soap opera, and went to bed early. I woke up at 2 in the morning to the sound of the door slamming, and he came in stumbling, smelling like cigarettes and alcohol, and he didn't smoke, or at least he didn't smoke with me. You still awake? He said, throwing the key on the coffee table, and I was in the hallway in an old nightgown trying to understand. I just woke up, are you okay? He laughed a loose, crooked laugh. I'm great, babe, couldn't be better, and he came to me and tried to kiss me, and I turned my face, and he stopped frown. What's wrong now? You're being prissy. Marcelo, you drank too much. Let's go to sleep. Sleep, he repeated loudly. I go out to work like a condemned man, pay all the bills of this shit, and you want me to sleep. My heart raced, and he had never talked like that, not like this. Marcelo, stop. Stop what Julia and he approached, and I felt the sour breath near my face. You think I don't know? You think I don't see? I don't know what you're talking about. The way you look at me, that victim way, like I'm a monster," and he pointed at me with his index finger almost touching my chest. "I saved you, Julia. You had nothing, and now you stand there judging me." I tried to move away, go to the bedroom, and he grabbed my arm, and he didn't hurt me, and he didn't need to, and he just held it firm. Let go when I want to. I looked into his eyes, and I didn't see anger, and I saw pleasure. He let me go and pushed slightly, like someone testing, and I fell sitting on the couch. "You're nothing without me," he said with an almost calm voice, and then he went to the bedroom and slammed the door. I stayed there, and I don't know how long, maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour, and the room was dark and cold, and outside a car passed honking. I got up slowly and I went to the kitchen, and I opened the drawer where the knives, forks, spoons were, and I picked up the pressure cooker and I weighed it in my hand, and I thought, if I throw this at the wall now, he'll wake up and then he'll kill me or I'll die trying. I put the cooker back in its place. I went back to the couch and I sat with my legs folded, hugging my knees, and the silver bracelet scratched my thigh. And then I said out loud alone for the first time, "I'm not going back to being the same." On Saturday morning, Marcelo woke up as if nothing had happened, and he had coffee read news on his phone, gave me a kiss on the forehead. "Good morning, babe," and I didn't answer, and he didn't notice. In the afternoon, I went to my mother's house, and I needed to get out, and I needed to breathe, and she was washing clothes in the backyard when I arrived, and she saw me, dried her hands on her apron, and smiled. "What a surprise, daughter." We sat in the kitchen, and I drank reheated coffee, and I ate cheese bread, and I stayed silent too long. "What's wrong?" she asked, running her hand through my hair. I started crying, and I didn't plan to, and it just came out. I told her not everything, but I told her enough, and the way he controlled my phone, and how he decided my clothes, and how he had held me the night before, and how he had said I was nothing. My mother was quiet, and then she sighed. "Julia, marriage is hard, daughter. Men are like that when they drink. Your father was too. You need to have patience." I froze. "Mom, he held me. He pushed me." "But did he hurt you?" "No, but..." "Then it wasn't a big deal," and she took my hand. "You chose to get married. Julia, now deal with it. God doesn't like separation, and think, where will you go? You don't work, you don't have money. Go back to him, apologize, make a nice dinner. This will pass." I left without saying goodbye. On Monday. I tried to call my cousin, and she didn't answer, and I sent a message, and she saw it and didn't respond, and I found out later by chance that Marcelo had called her last week. "Just letting you know that Julia has been kind of stressed. If she says something stupid, ignore it. She's confused." On Tuesday, I went to the pharmacy to buy medicine for a headache, and the girl at the register recognized me. "Didn't you work at that distributor? You disappeared?" I talked for 5 minutes, and she gave me her number. "Anything, call me. We'll go out for some acai." I kept the paper in my coat pocket. When I got home, Marcelo was in the living room. "You took a while." I went to the pharmacy. I saw on GPS, and he showed his phone and the red dot my location. "But you stayed there 15 minutes. Does the pharmacy take that long?" I didn't answer, and I went to the bedroom. That night, lying down, I heard him snoring next to me, and I grabbed my phone and I searched on Google how to know if I'm in an abusive relationship. I read 3 articles, and each checklist seemed like a description of my life. I deleted the history. 2 days later, on Thursday, I got a call from an unknown number, and I answered quietly in the bathroom with the door locked. "Hello, Julia," and the voice was female, soft. "My name is Carla. I'm a psychologist at Cross. Your mother called me. She said you might need to talk." I was mute. "You don't need to say anything now, but I'll leave you my number and the address of the group. We do here every Tuesday at 7 at night. It's open. You can come whenever you want." I wrote the number on the palm of my hand with eyebrow pencil. When I came out of the bathroom, Marcelo was leaning against the hallway wall. "Who called?" "Wrong number." He looked at my hand, and I closed my fist. "Show me, Marcelo. Show me the fucking hand, Julia." I opened it slowly, and he read, and he frowned, and then he laughed. "Psychologist, you think I'm crazy? Is it you think I need a psychologist to understand my own wife?" I took my hand back, and I went to the sink, and I washed until the ink came out, but I had already memorized the number. The following Tuesday, I lied, and I said I was going to an old schoolmate's house who was sick, and Marcelo looked at me with suspicion, but he let me be back before 9. I walked, and the cross was 40 minutes from home, and I arrived sweaty with my heart beating fast, in the room was small, with plastic chairs in a circle, and 6 women were already there, and Carla, the psychologist, saw me at the door and smiled. "Come in, make yourself comfortable." I sat and I didn't say anything the first hour, and I just listened. One of them, Renata, told how her ex-husband broke plates when he got angry, and another, Simone, said her boyfriend read her messages and deleted contacts, and a third, Anna, cried because she had gone back 3 times. Do you think I'm weak? Anna asked. Carla answered before anyone else. You're not weak. You're trapped, and getting out of a prison takes time. At the end, Carla gave me a notebook, small hardcover navy blue. Write whatever you want, whatever you feel, whatever you can't say. I kept it in my purse, like contraband. I came home at 8:30 and Marcelo was in the living room watching soccer and he didn't even look at me. Did your friend get better? She did. I went to the bathroom and I sat on the toilet lid and I opened the notebook and I wrote, my name is Julia. I'm 26 years old and I think I'm dying inside. I hid the notebook at the back of the closet inside a box of tampons. In the following weeks, I went back to the group always Tuesday, always on foot, always with a different excuse. Doctor, exam, sick cousin, far grocery store. Carla taught me practical things like how to save money hidden, how to get duplicate documents, how to use a payphone, how to know if he was following me. You don't need to leave tomorrow, she said, but you need to be ready when you decide. I started collecting coins, 50 cents here, $1 there, and I kept them in an empty Nesco can at the back of the kitchen cabinet. I opened a digital account on my phone in anonymous mode, and I transferred $20 a week from the money he gave me for groceries, and I bought less meat, more pasta. He didn't notice. One night while he slept, I took my ID, my birth certificate, and I took photos, and I saved them in the cloud, and I deleted them from the gallery. In the group, Renata taught me how to turn off the location on my phone without him noticing. Turn on airplane mode for a few seconds, reactivate with GPS off, and say the phone bugged. It worked, and for the first time in months, I walked down the street without feeling like there was an eye stuck to my back. On my 27th birthday, Marcelo gave me a bouquet of red roses and expensive perfume. You deserve it, babe. And we had dinner out, and he was kind, polite, paid the bill, pulled out my chair, opened the car door. Back home, he kissed me slowly, and he took me to the bedroom, and he had sex with me like it was the first time. Afterward, while he slept, I went to the kitchen, and I grabbed the Nesco can, and I counted $240. I looked out the window, and a car passed with loud music, and the yellow light blinked. And then I heard my phone vibrate, and a message from Carla. There's a cashier opening at a bakery near Cross. Do you want me to talk to the owner? I typed, slowly, trembling, yes. I started working at the bakery 3 weeks later, and Marcelo didn't know, and I said I was going to the churchcraft group. He hated church, never checked, and I worked from 2 to 6 in the afternoon 4 days a week, and I made half a salary and I got paid in cash. Donna Lords, the owner, was a woman in her 60s, short hair, thick hands, from kneading so much dough, and when Carla introduced me, she looked me up and down and said, "Can you make change fast?" Then you're hired. She didn't sign my work card, didn't make a contract, but she paid me every Friday at the end of the shift in a manila envelope. On the first day, I sold French bread, donuts, cornmeal cake, and I learned to wrap with wax paper, and I learned where the small change was, and I learned to smile at the customer even when I wanted to cry. At the end of the shift, Donna Lords gave me a little bag with 3 breads and a piece of cake. Take it, there's leftovers. I hid it in my purse and I ate everything on the way home. With the money from the bakery, I opened a checking account, physical this time, and I got the card and I kept it inside the blue notebook. Carla helped me fill out the separation papers and I didn't file them yet, but they were ready. When you're ready, she said, in your time. 2 months later, I bought a used phone, nothing fancy, small screen, bad camera, but it was mine, and I put in a prepaid chip, and I gave the number only to Carla, to Donna Lords, and to the girls in the group. I kept the new phone inside the shoebox in the closet, and the other one, the one Marcelo controlled, I kept using normally. One Saturday afternoon, he went out to play soccer, and I took advantage, and I went to the key shop on the corner, and I had a copy of the apartment key made, and I hid the copy at the bottom of my purse in an inner pocket he never opened. I started sleeping with my purse under the pillow. At work, I became friends with Jessica, the girl who made the snacks, and she was my age, 2 small children, and she had left a violent marriage 3 years before. The secret, she told me, frying cocks and ha, is to go slowly, 1 step at a time, no drama, no warning, you disappear quietly like smoke. On Christmas night, Marcelo gave me a new bracelet, silver with a heart pendant to replace that old one. I took off the old one, and he threw it in the trash, and I put on the new one. 2 days later, I took off the new one too, and I kept it in the drawer. Where's the bracelet? He asked. The clasp broke. I'm going to get it fixed. I never did. In the group, I learned how to make a resume, and Carla brought a woman from Sin who taught us how to fill it out, how to lie and work. experience when necessary how to seem confident in the interview. I sent my resume to 5 companies and one called me accounting office receptionist position. I went to the interview and I pretended I didn't have a husband and I pretended I lived alone and I lied about my age, said I was 25. I was hired, salary $2,400, start date March 1st. I told Donna Lords I was leaving and she hugged me. You did it, girl. I cried there in the middle of the bakery smelling like warm bread. Marcelo didn't know anything, but on the night of February 28th, he came home early and he entered without making noise and he found me in the kitchen with the new phone in my hand, typing a message to Carla. He stopped at the door and he looked and he said with a voice to calm, "What phone is that, Julia?" I froze and the phone felt heavy in my hand like lead. It's Jessica, as she lent it to me, mine froze. Marcelo took 2 steps and stopped in front of me and extended his hand, "Give it to me." "Marcelo, give me the phone, Julia." I handed it over. He unlocked it and read the messages and his face didn't change and he scrolled slowly and stopped at a conversation with Carla and he read out loud documents, "Ready Monday, 9 in the morning, notary, can you make it?" Silence. He raised his eyes. "You were going to leave me. It wasn't a question. You were going to disappear without saying anything, like a thief. After everything I did for you, everything I paid for, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, this fucking roof over your head." And he threw the phone on the floor and the screen cracked. "You owe me, Julia." I took a deep breath and then for the first time I talked back. "I don't owe you anything." He blinked like he didn't understand. "Say that again." "I don't owe you anything." Marcelo took a step and I took one back and I pressed against the sink. He laughed, a short, dry laugh. "You think you're going where? What family wants you? Your mother can't stand you? Your cousin avoids you? You have nobody, nothing. You're mine." I grabbed the pressure cooker that was next to the stove and I held it with both hands. "If you touch me, I'll throw this in your face." He looked at the cooker, then at me, and he smiled. "You won't. I will." We stood like that. 10 seconds, maybe 20. He took a step back. "You have until tomorrow morning to disappear, then I'm changing the locks." He turned his back and left. I heard the bedroom door slam. I stood there holding the cooker, trembling all over. At 3 in the morning while he slept, I grabbed my purse and I put inside ID, birth certificate, bank card, blue notebook. 2 changes of clothes, broken phone, and I put on my sneakers and I locked the bedroom door from the outside. I had put a new lock without him knowing days ago, following Jessica's advice. I left the apartment in silence. I walked to the bus stop and it was 4 in the morning and the street was empty and I sat on the ground leaning against the pole and I waited. At 5 I called Carla. I left. She sighed on the other side. "Where are you?" "At the stop near the bakery." "Stay there. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I stayed. When Carla arrived in an old white Casa, she didn't ask questions and she just opened the door. "Get in." We got in. She took me to her house, a 1-bedroom apartment in Barrio Geraldo, and she made tea, gave me a blanket. "Sleep tomorrow, we'll figure it out." I slept on the couch, and for the first time in years without a 3 months later, I was living in a rented room near work and I shared bathroom and kitchen with 2 other girls and I paid for $100 rent and it was tight, but it was mine. The divorce came out in May and he didn't contest, didn't ask for alimony, didn't want to split anything, and he just signed. At the notary door, I crossed the paths with him and Marcelo was in a gray suit, hair combed, perfume I knew, and he looked at me like I was transparent. "You're going to regret it," he said, quietly, near my ear. I didn't answer and I just signed my name on the paper and left. 2 weeks later, I met Bruno. It was at a coworker's birthday party at a bar in Geraldo, and he was her boyfriend's friend, pay teacher, light eyes, easy smile, and we talked about music, about movies, about nothing. He asked for my number and I gave it. We went out 3 times and he paid for everything, insisted, "Let me pay, relax," and I thought it was kind. The 4th time we went to a Japanese restaurant and the bill came and he took it and he swiped his card and came back. "There was a problem, can you split?" "Sure." I paid my half. On the way back, he was quiet, and when he dropped me off at home, he said, "You know, I thought it was kind of weird. Woman who splits the bill is kind of, I don't know, too independent." I felt something freeze inside me. Too independent. Yeah, like I like to pay, but you didn't even let me. "Bruno, you asked me to split, but you should have insisted. Like, no babe, you pay, you know." I looked at him, at the smile I had thought was handsome, at his hands on the steering wheel, at the way he expected me to say what he wanted to hear. I don't think this is going to work out between us, I said. He laughed because of the bill. No, because of games. I got out of the car. The following week, he sent me messages 3, then 5, and he called, and I didn't answer, and I blocked him. Jessica at the bakery, I still helped on Saturdays, laughed when I told her, "You learned fast." I did. Carla told me in the group, "Now you know how to recognize. That's freedom." I came home that night to my small room, to the mattress on the floor, to the window facing the noisy street, and I sat on the bed and I opened a blue notebook and I wrote, "Today I chose alone and it didn't hurt." I kept the notebook and I lay down and I closed my eyes. And then I thought, almost smiling, maybe I'm ready to love myself. 6 months later, I moved to an apartment of my own studio, 1-room bathroom, kitchenette, rent $700, and it was in my work neighborhood and I could walk. I bought a used mattress and I got a refrigerator from Donna Lord's. She had replaced it, and Jessica gave me pins and Carla gave me a sheet set, and my mother, after months without talking to me, showed up with a plastic chair and a package of pasta. "I don't agree," she said, standing at the door, "but you're my daughter." It wasn't an apology, but it was what she could manage. I accepted. I painted the kitchen wall yellow and I bought a little plant, a tiny succulent, and I put it on the windowsill and it grew. At work, I asked for a raise and I got it. 1,800 became 2,200. I started taking online English classes at night after work, 1 hour 3 times a week, and I wanted to be something else and I didn't know what yet, but I wanted. I started talking to my cousin again and she cried on the phone. "I'm sorry, Rue," I believed him. "I thought you were crazy." "I thought so too," I answered, "but I wasn't." We stopped going to the group, not because we didn't need it, but because now I was helping, and I sat next to Carla and I listened to stories and I held hands and I said, "You're not alone." One September night, alone in the studio, I made pasta with tomato sauce and I ate straight from the pot, sitting on the floor watching videos on my phone, and I laughed alone loudly. I realized I hadn't laughed like that in years. At the end of October, I bought a camera, nothing professional, an old compact one I found at a thrift store for $150. And I didn't know how to use it, but I liked pressing the button and seeing the image freeze. I started photographing the street, the sunset through the window, the succulent on the sill, my reflection in the bathroom mirror. One day, looking at the photos, I noticed I was smiling in almost all of them. I didn't remember when I had stopped smiling or when I had started again. On a Friday, I ran into Marcelo on the street and he was arm in arm with another woman, blonde, tall, laughing at something he was saying, and our eyes met for a second. I felt nothing, not anger, not fear, not relief, just nothing. I kept walking. On the first anniversary of the divorce, I made cake chocolate with fudge frosting, and I ate a slice alone, standing in the kitchen, licking my sugar-covered finger, and then I put the rest in the fridge. I sat on the bed, cross-legged with the blue notebook in my lap, and I reread the first pages, the shaky handwriting, the short sentences full of fear. I turned to the last written page, and I read, "Today I chose alone, and it didn't hurt." I grabbed a pen, and I wrote below, "Today I am whole, and that's enough." I closed the notebook and I looked out the window, and the street was empty and the light was blinking yellow. I grabbed the camera and I adjusted the focus, and I framed the window, the light, the piece of sky I could see. I clicked. The image turned out beautiful, not perfect, but beautiful. I put the camera away and I lay down and I turned off the light. I slept without locking the bedroom door, because now finally I was the owner of my own keys. If you're going through something similar, know this: you're not alone. Seek help. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Look for local women's shelters or crisis centers. Talk to someone you trust. Leaving is possible. Starting over is possible. Life on the other side of the door is worth it. And if you made it this far, maybe Julia's story touched something inside you, or maybe you know someone living through this right now in this moment, unable to name it. And the truth is, we learn slowly the difference between love and control, between care and possession, between partnership and prison. And when we finally learn, sometimes we've already lost too much time, but it's never too late. Never leaving isn't weakness. Being alone isn't failure. Starting from zero with a mattress on the floor and an old pot might be the bravest act of your life, because freedom doesn't come ready, doesn't come pretty, doesn't come easy. It comes dirty. From the floor, tired, from buses, scared at night. But it comes, and when it comes, you understand it was worth every step. So if this story made sense to you, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos, and comment down below where you're watching from. Your presence matters, your story matters, and if you need help, seek it. Call the hotline, go to a shelter, talk to someone. You deserve to be free. deserve to be whole, and you're not alone.